Alright guys, so today I'm going to be looking at some stadiums that have aged like fine wine. I did stadiums that aged like milk, bad stadiums. Now we're looking back into the 90s and prior to stadiums that are beautiful, the design is beautiful, and they have many more years of life in them, starting with the MLB and starting with, of course, possibly the best stadium of the 90s, ORIOLE Park at Camden Yards. Just a beautiful stadium in general. Really no major renovations. I know they were kind of thinking about maybe doing something with the left field upper deck. That kind of design maybe is a little obsolete, but I think they made a good decision holding off on that. The Orioles do draw pretty well when they are good, and they should be pretty good soon with the young core. You've got the warehouse out beyond right field with Utah Street. It's just a great ballpark. The only negative I can say about ORIOLE Park is there's kind of a weird seating configuration in beyond the first baseline down the line. That's really odd. And then the thing that they did do is they moved the fences back and up. I don't agree with that. I understand if you want to move them back because it was insanely hard for the Orioles to develop pitching with just the way that how close the left field was. But if you move the fence up as well, like you raise it, it just seems like it's impossible to hit a home run as a right-handed hitter to left field. It seems insanely hard, like they made it too hard almost. They were trying to balance the park, and maybe they did. I just kind of have always viewed ORIOLE Park at Camden Yards as a more hitter park, but overall, the way they built it, again, right next to the warehouse, all of the corks with it, it's just a really good stadium, and even their upper deck, it seems to be a little bit smaller in terms of rows than Coors Field, than Progressive Field, which is a positive. When comparing stadiums that were also built in the 90s, this stadium, believe it opened up about a year after Tropicana Field and 2 years before Progressive Field. So really remarkable that the it's been a bottom stadium for the past decade plus. Progressive Field has already undergone one big renovation and they're planning another, and this stadium continues to just look beautiful, and it has at least another 20 to 25 years in it at the minimum, so that is aged like fine wine. The other one I would say, very obvious, it is Fenway Park. So Fenway Park, you can talk about Wrigley, you can talk about Dodger Stadium, but both of those stadiums have the big upper deck. Fenway Park is truly organic in its design, early 1900s, basically no upper deck, and then you do have the only real negative with it is the lower bowl configuration down the right field line. There are some really bad seats down there, but you're just going to have to deal with it. Fenway Park is the perfect blend of old and new. They've renovated it. It seems like every year they're doing something. They kind of had a wall of seating in right field. They took out a few of those rows and put up a multi-level restaurant, which is a really nice thing there. And then, of course, you've got the Green Monster. You've got the history of it. You've got the red seats with the green seats in the outfield. It's just beautiful, and it is the perfect mixture of old with new and all the renovations they've done. So Fenway Park, that one's aged like wine, and they've also really built up the surrounding areas of it. So Fenway Park, at least, I would say another 20 to 25 years just based off the money they've poured into it recently. And then the other one, Oracle Park. This one, I believe, opened in the really early 2000s, but just based off of the location, Oracle Park is going to last a while. They hit a home run, figuratively here, building this park right on McCovey Cove with the water, the beautiful view, and they also do not have, that crazy of an intrusive upper deck. I will say San Francisco, surprisingly enough, has had some attendance problems. They had that sellout streak going. It ended back in 2019, and they they've had some issues with their upper deck, with the seating. They do have almost, I would say, an obsolete upper deck. It's just giant rows of seats. It's not insane like Chase Field, but it is a little bit big. Overall, it is a beautiful stadium on the water, and it's going to be here for a while just based off of its location. Also, they moved the bullpens out to center field, and they kind of messed with some of that seating, and they did take away Triples Alley, but it's one of those things where you kind of understand it. I mean, that place was a dungeon to try and hit home runs to right center field. It was virtually impossible. It was such a pitcher's park to where, with the way the MLB is going, more offense, we get it. That was kind of a renovation that they did to it. They've done a bunch of stuff with center field out there. They had this weird grass garden, and then they had like the net over top of it. That's like what the Yankees have with the Monument Park. They have like a net over top. I think that's such a bad look, but I really don't know how else you would protect like the fans from a fly ball to center field other than a net, even though I think the net's a bad look. I don't know what else you would do. But either way, you know, Oracle Park, beautiful. Kind of sad they changed the name from AT&T because you want an iconic park to stay iconic, but it is what it is. Moving on to the NFL, it is Arrowhead Stadium, opening in the 70s. Just the design of it. If you design something that is unique, your stadium has a chance to become iconic and historic, and the upper deck of this, jetting up, jetting in, the difference being symmetrical on each side. It is an iconic stadium. I will say they have been helped a little bit by the Chiefs being very good recently. Also, it gets really loud in there, so the fans have definitely helped Arrowhead Stadium, but just it's very unique. No upper deck is close to modeling it, and that is one of the big reasons why it is on the list of stadiums that have aged like fine wine. My prediction on this situation, I think when the Royals move somewhere else, because right now you've got Kauffman Stadium right next to Arrowhead, I do think you could be looking at a renovation for Arrowhead. It really hasn't, I mean, they've gotten a great life out of Arrowhead. You're talking about the 70s to now, and there really hasn't been any crazy renovations. I mean, obviously you're going to have to renovate the suites, get a new scoreboard, but in terms of the seating, they've done nothing to it. So this is the true definition of a stadium that has aged like wine. Really no crazy renovations. It is the exact same from when it opened in 1973. And then obviously also we do have Lambeau Field. Lambeau Field reminds me a lot of Fenway. Now they did have to change Lambeau a bit, and I think it was for the better. They went from just a lower bowl, you know, Michigan Stadium, Notre Dame Stadium type look to adding seating over top, but they did it in a way to where it was just really small sections and it still fits Lambeau. It's not like this crazy wall, you know, 2 or 3 upper decks. It's just very small, 3 sections and 2 decks of seating. So I think Lambeau Field, really good job combining the old with the new. The new sections look really good. That happened in like, I want to say 2012, 2013 when it was under construction and they added those, but it was a nice incorporation. Lambeau is historic. It's great. You know, when you're talking about just like one giant lower bowl, that's an out-of-date design. That's more of a college type look again. So adding those little sections, it's really aged well, and Lambeau Field for sure, it has many years to come, and then it's got the iconic snow, the elements, and things like that. And then when it comes to the NBA, I'm going to go Crypto.com Arena, which was Staples Center now. When I was younger, I always thought Staples Center was this legendary NBA arena that was like 30 years old, but this thing opened in 1999, and I think just a great design. When you compare it to other stadiums that opened around there, very, very small upper deck. They're actually being proactive, the Lakers are, and renovating it and putting in a window, which I think is the next big thing with NBA arenas, letting in natural light. That's a good move. One of the first teams to really incorporate that. I think other teams will follow with renovations. But yeah, really, really nice. I like NBA arenas when you've got the small upper deck. The one criticism you could say, I mean, there's just so many suites in this thing, but it is LA. You do understand it. I mean, they have 3 decks of suites on top of each other, But either way, it is a good arena. And I also love the exterior design, the big circle around it. Crypto.com, they do have a nice light display. You know, the name change is brutal though, man. Staples to Crypto.com is tough. I mean, I don't know. I guess Staples wasn't willing to pay, but that is a rough change. And then when it comes to college football, you could choose a bunch of these. I love LSU Stadium. So this is one, you know, this thing opened, I believe, in the 20s, the 1920s. They've expanded it a bunch. That's typically what happens with college football. But I just love the big lower bowl of seating. This is college football. They only have like 8 home games a year, 7 sometimes. So they are very exclusive seats. They're going to sell out pretty much every game. The exterior of LSU Tiger Stadium, amazing. It has one of the best, if not the best, college game day atmosphere, and then they've added onto it. The upper deck does look a little bit dated, but they do have a really cool, like, you know, little exclusive suite area that they added on as well. So overall, Tiger Stadium, really nice. And then I would say Ohio Stadium is another stadium that's aged very well. It's just such a unique horseshoe shape. They've added on a bunch of seating. They've actually had a renovation back in 2013 to their student section where they extended the student section and it sat about 107,000. And then they've had a recent renovation, I believe in 2016, they took the capacity back down to about 103K, but it is just such a unique 2-deck bowl design. And then you've got the student section, really cool for college football there. They've added onto it. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Just some really nice stadiums built in the 90s, in the 70s, in the 30s with college football that have aged like wine, aged very well, and have probably a lot of years left in their lifespan. So guys, make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.